Welcome creative minds to my channel. You're welcome, and today's project I'm going to be showing you how you can achieve this beautiful classy dress with side gathers and a rope like design at the top. So this dress can be made longer, shorter, or even like 3/4 length, whichever way you desire. Let's get right into the video. So I'm going to be making use of this plain fabric for this project. You can make use of any material of your choice. This is a Dres fabric. So I've gone ahead to draft out my pattern paper, labeling all the necessary parts, my chest line, bust point, on the bust, waistline, and my gown length. So how I started my measurement was 2 inches above my chest line. So my chest line is 8 inches and I went up by 2 inches. That's where my dress will begin with. So I'm just going to go ahead and map out my nipple to nipple measurement all the way around my chest line, bust point, on the bust, waistline, my hip line, and also my gown length. The reason why I'm beginning my measurement this way is because I want to make use of this full pattern paper as the length of my dress, and because this is more like an off-shoulder dress, so we won't be needing the shoulder parts. So I'm just going to rule a straight line down to my dress length. Then at my hip line I went up by 2 inches. Then at my waistline I went out by half an inch on both sides. I came down at my bust point by 1 inch, and I'm going to be connecting it like I'm doing here. This is just to give us that for this gown. So this pattern paper, we're going to be using it to draft our front and back. So at that point I extended it by 1 inches. That's my starting line. Then I'm going to curve it back to my nipple to nipple line that I drew. Why I'm doing that is because I want to have that curvy and that close up for my bust. Then I'm going to be going out by half an inch just to give it that look. So I'm going to go half an inch and I'm going to be connecting it at that point. So you can begin your gown depending on how exposed you want the chest area to be. You can start your gown measurement from your chest line, but I decided to go up by 2 inches. So at that point I'm going to just measure my round bust measurement at the top line, which is my starting line. Then I'm just going to connect it like I'm doing to my chest line. I'll go to my bust point, I'll measure my round bust divided by 4 and I'll impute it there. I'll do same for my under bust as well. I will replace what I took out for my darts and I'll just keep connecting all my lines all the way down. So at my waistline I'll also do the same. My round waist measurement divided by 4, I'll impute it. Then I'll replace what I took out for the dart and I'll impute the measurement. For my hip line is my round hip divided by 4. I will also impute it, and I'm going to also map what I have at my hip line. I will impute it at my dress length. Okay, this gown is not a fitted gown, so that's why I'm going to be doing that. But you can actually do 1 inches lesser. So for instance, if your hip is maybe 10 inches, you can do 9 inches at your dress length. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight my lines so you can see it clearly. So the next, now I'm going to be imputing 1.5 inches allowance. This is going to serve as my stitching allowance for this dress. I'm also going to be adding a zipper for this. So when I'm going to be cutting out the back piece, I'm going to be including that on my dress. Like I said, I'm going to be using this pattern to cut out for the back and the front as well. I'm going to be showing you how we're going to do it. So now we're going to create our gather effect. So for where my gathers is going to begin, for my waistline I went down by 2 inches, and I'm now going to go ahead and curve it down to my nipple to nipple line. So I'm just going to go ahead and just do this with my free hand, just give it a curvy look. all the way to that point, at least a little bit to your hip line. Just curve it, let it meet up to our straight line that we drew. At that point, we're going to be slashing and spreading it. So I'm going to label my pattern like so as to enable me to understand it when I'm cutting on my fabric. So the next step now is to go ahead and cut out the parts we're going to be slashing and spreading, which is going to give us our gather effects. So after cutting out that part, I'm just going to go ahead and close up my darts first before we use the pattern to cut out for the back piece. So this slash and spread part, we're just going to keep it aside. We'll work on it much later. So next, I'm just going to go ahead and close up my darts. I'll pin it down. You can go ahead and tip it. I'm going to close up the waist dart as well, like I'm doing here. I'll go ahead and just tape it quickly. Then I'll place it on my fabric, and we're going to use it to cut for the back piece first. So here I imputed my zipper allowance. So at my waistline, I'm just going to go ahead and go in a little bit by 1/2 inch, and I'll curve it down and also curve it up just to take out gaping that usually appears at the back of your zipper. So that's going to help take that out completely. So I'm also going to be imputing 1/2 inch measurement for my allowance at the down part to join the gathers. Then no need for allowance at the side. I already imputed that on our pattern. Then I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the zipper parts just like I'm doing here. So this now is going to serve as our back piece. I will go ahead and impute 1/2 inch at the top. So now we're going to go ahead and modify this pattern to enable us cut for the front part. So we're going to cut through like I'm doing here. Just pay attention to how I'm cutting it out. So we are basically just taking out the darts just like I'm doing, and I'm going to go ahead and use this to cut out for my back piece, for my front piece, sorry, and I'll keep it aside. So for the slash and spread method, what we're going to be doing is to slash this part to enable us have that gather effect. I'm going to be slashing it by 1 inches. So I'm going to be marking 1 inches all the way, just like I'm doing, and I'm going to draw a straight line from the top to the down part. So I'm just going to use it as a guide to draw a straight line all the way to the down part. So I'm going to be using my marker so that you can see it clearly. I'll just keep doing this all the way to the down part. So you can slash by 1.5 inches. It depends, this totally depends on how you want the gather effect to come out. You can splash 1.5, you can splash 1.7 inches. So I'll label it 1 to 8, so I have about 8 spread. So I'm just going to cut through to give it the opening. I'm going to cut through my slash, and I'm going to place it on my fabric and slash it. So at this point, if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly do so by hitting the subscription button, and also turn on your notification so you get notified whenever I post new tutorials on this channel. So the next step now is to place on our fabric. So here I've gone ahead to place on my fabric like I did. So I spread it 1 inches apart on my fabric. So the difference between /1 and /2 is 1 inches. Then I added 1 inches at the top, and I added 1 inches at the down part for joining. So I'm just going to cut this. So I'm going to be cutting this in two places, one for the left side and one for the right side. So I'll cut this in two places and I'll keep it aside. So the next step now is to begin joining all our pieces together to form our dress. So now we're going to be joining our dress. So these are front pattern. I also went ahead to cut interfacing for all my piece. You can go ahead and use a lining if you want for yours, but I'm just going to be using interfacing to close up all the rough edges at the top parts, both the back and the front. So I'm going to open up my center front and I'll be joining the side front together. From the top part, I'll go ahead and pin it all the way to that point, and after pinning it, I'll go to my machine and I'll join all this together, give it a good press, and we'll keep aside. So like I said, this dress can be made longer, it can be made shorter, and it can be made to any length you want basically. So this is what it looks like by the time I was done joining. I'm going to give it a good press and we'll come back to it much later. So for the back piece, I'm just going to go ahead and measure how long I want the zip to be. Then I'll note that point. Then I'm going to close up the other side all the way to the down part, and I'm going to be imputing my zipper. Then I'll close up that point. So this is what it looks like by the time I was done imputing my zipper. Go ahead and give it a good press. So next I'm going to use my interfacing to just close up my zip to enable it, give it a very neat look. So I'm going to open it like I'm doing here, and I'll place it and I'll pin it all the way to the other side. If you've been with me on this channel, you already be used to this method of closing a zipper. So I'll do same for the other side, and I'll go to my machine. I'll stitch on this point a little bit to the zipper, and I'll stitch at the upper points. So after stitching, I'm just going to go ahead and open it up for you to see. So you open it and this is what it should look. You can see how neat it's looking. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press. So the next step now is to work on our front piece. So I've gone ahead to cut out my ropes. I have about 8 inches for my rope. So on this dress, you can achieve this in two methods. Either you impute this rope, like tack it directly at the top of your dress, or you can use your lining or interfacing to turn the rope over. Either way, you will still get a very good result. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and impute mine like so. So ensure that you are imputing it together. Let it, like, it should be on top of each other. So you can do this, like tack it on it. On the main dress, they actually tacked it directly on the top of the dress, but for me, I'm going to be using my interfacing to turn it over. So by the time I close up with my interfacing, I'll just give it a good press. So I'm just going to do this all the way. Then I'm going to be including a longer strap at one point. So here, this is what it looks like. I went ahead to include a longer strap, which is going to help for us to hold it together at the neck area. So when you are wearing it, you just use that to as a design for the neck part. So this is what it looks like. I went ahead to also close up with an hemming gum at the other side. So now I'm going to be joining the front and the back together like so. So I'm going to be joining the sides just like so together. So after joining the sides, the next step is to go ahead and work on the parts we slashed and spread. So just bring your fabric like so. So the gathers is going to be at the hip point. So I'm just going to use my pins to pin down all the way to where I will begin my gather stitch from. So I'm going to begin my gather stitch at that point. I'll take note of it and I'll pin the other side as well. This is just going to help me to know the particular points my gathers will start from. I'm going to be running a gather stitch on my splash and spread part before joining it to my main dress. So all these points, I'm going to just go ahead and gather it. Okay, I'll gather it, then I'll go ahead and sew it on my dress. So I'm going to measure how long my gather should be, so I'll mark it out just like I'm doing. Then I'll use my tape to measure it to know how long my gather should be. So my gather should be about 13 inches. So when I'm gathering the other parts, after sewing a loose stitch on it, I will gather it to ensure that it is 13 inches long. Then I'll fix it on my dress. I hope you understand. So now this, after I was done gathering it, you can see how beautiful the gather already look. And now I'm going to go ahead and fix it on my dress part. So I'll just go ahead and make adjustments and I'll fix it on it. So voila, this is what it looks like by the time I was done fixing it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good press. Then I'll close up the hemline of my dress, and that's basically all for this tutorial. I hope you learned something and I hope you'll be trying it. So this is how it looks like. This is what yours should look even more prettier than this. Thank you so much for watching and sticking with me to the end, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Bye.